I could perhaps start in 1 minute, so 14 past. Then we can start letting people in.
That's the jingle. And I will let people in.
Yeah. Hallo und herzlich willkommen. Das war ein etwas abrupter Übergang. Ich dachte, es wird langsam rüber gemutet. We're going to have this discussion in English because it's going to be an international panel. And I'm very excited for the next 45 minutes, which we're going to be spending discussing about circularity in cities with indeed a very international and also very interesting panel. I think most of us participating in the session today will be living in cities. And so also most people will be aware that cities are true waste hotspots. In fact, around half of the world's waste is generated in cities, and a further 75% of natural resources are consumed in cities. So given that, by 2050, more than 2/3 of the world's population is gonna live in cities around the world. It's today even more than ever a big challenge to create a safe and healthy environment for everybody living in urban areas. And so in the next 3/4 of an hour, I will be discussing with 4 true pioneers in the field of circular cities, how cities can promote the transition towards a circular economy. And with that, not just tackle the waste problem, but also climate change. So joining us today are Boju Tunja. She is, since the beginning of the month, co-lead for the Circular Economy Program at Adelphi here in Berlin. And formerly, she was head of circular development and global coordinator at ICLEI, a network of over 2,500 local and regional governments around the world working together to foster sustainable urban development. So welcome, Boju.
Thank you so much.
Also here with us is Charles Landry. He is multitasking at the moment. He's also on a train in Italy, but nonetheless joining us. He is an urban researcher, author, and international advisor, helping cities around the world to work out a vision of their future, in which, of course, circularity also plays a big role. So welcome, Charles. Also at the panel is Desiree Bernhardt. She is Senior Policy Officer for Circular Economy at the Department of Urban Planning and Sustainability at the City of Amsterdam, a true pioneer in the field of circularity, as many of you probably know, because in 2020, Amsterdam has introduced a circular strategy, and its aim is to halve the use of new raw materials by 2030 and achieve full circularity by 2050. So very advanced, very pioneering, and welcome, Desiree. And last but not least is Professor Philipp Bouteiller. He is the CEO of Tegel Project in Berlin. And for those who don't know, up until recently, Tegel was Berlin's main airport and was recently shut down. It's replaced by a new airport. And the old area, which is the 500-hectare ground, is going to be turned into a research and industrial park, as well as a new residential area. And sustainability and circularity play a very central role in this area's redesigned. And I'm sure Philipp is going to tell us much more about what's happening at Tegel at the moment. Welcome, Philipp.
Hello.
So I'm very much looking forward to discuss with you many, I think, very interesting aspects around city circularity. Before we start, also a very warm welcome, of course, to everybody in the audience. You are very much invited to share your thoughts and questions in the chat. My colleague Holke, who is our tech host today, many thanks for that as well, Holke. He is going to be monitoring the chat window and collecting a few questions, and we're going to bring them up at the end of the discussion. So please feel free to share all your thoughts. As I hope you are aware, this session is going to be live streamed, or in fact, we are already live on YouTube and also on our festival website. And we also are going to take pictures. So if you are not okay with this, please turn off your camera. But of course, I hope you are, and stay with us with your camera turned on. Let's jump right into it. I would like to know at the very beginning from each of the four panelists. As you know, Germany aims to be climate neutral by 2045. Therefore, I'd like to ask you, if you think of the year 2045, what do you think circular cities look like, or how circular are our cities going to be like? Philipp, please start, and then just hand over to the next person on the panel.
Thank you, Paula. Yes, that's an interesting one. I mean, in your intro, you basically refer to the well-known statistics that cities consume 75% of all resources. But at the same time, and that's more of our narrative, 80% of all wealth is created in cities. So cities are the biggest lever we have when we want to change the world. And with our project, you mentioned it, it's 500 hectare of planning area, and we have two major projects. One is what we call the Urban Tech Republic. That's a platform research industry for future technologies in the field of cities. And the other, we call the Schumacher Quartier, is a residential district with 5,000 to 6,000 residential units for 12,000 people. And it's going to be the most sustainable city you can possibly imagine. It will be the largest wooden urban district in the world. We have a sponge city concept, so we keep all the water, we increase the biodiversity, we've kicked out cars. So all the stuff you dream of, and also we've developed a new energy system that's basically taking energy where it's sort of in excess from industry and commerce, and brings it over to the residential area for heating. So we have thought a lot about how we can reduce our footprint in order to produce not only carbon neutral or climate neutral cities, but even climate positive cities. And this is where the circularity part comes in. So what we are currently developing is a system where all the resources that we consume for the city, all the basically wooden elements are designed in a way that once the end of the life cycle of a building is coming, you can take these elements and use them in the next building. So that's cradle to cradle at its best. So from designing the city to its next use, you make sure that a raw material, once it's been extracted from the nature, that it keeps sort of being used in perpetuity. In ideal world, we all know a bit tear and wear is always occurring, but at least for as long as possible. So buildings of the future, and now we are jumping to 45, buildings of the future are actually material banks that we are using to build new stuff. And so it's like a big Lego game where you take the bricks from one and plug them into another, so that you but you never you always use the same bricks. And that's in a nutshell the system of circularity. I leave it there because otherwise I'm going to kill the discussion. Sorry. We've been planning it for so long. I could talk about that for hours.
I'm sure we're going to have a chance to elaborate on many of the points that you mentioned. Please hand over to the next person. Okay, then I'm going to decide which one's going to go next. Charles, please go ahead.
Microphone.
Oh, you're still muted. Can you unmute you?
I'm going to get up in a station in a minute. Ask Burcu, and I'll come in later.
Okay,
yeah?
Burcu, please go ahead.
Okay, happy changing trains, Charles. And well, I think I will echo what Philip said. We're in the same city, and I'm going to certainly visit the project. Sounds amazing. Starting with a number, we know 45 to 50% of the carbon is really embedded in all the products and services we use daily, also in our cities. So I'm thinking by 2045, for example, in Berlin, that the Department of Waste Management is not anymore called Waste Management, but Resource Management or Material Management Department. So this mindset by that time, not hoping, but should be embedded in our cities. And in that sense, we need also some strategies in place. I hope what we have been working with my ex-colleagues, but also now at Adelphi is strategies for circular economy in cities. For example, the Circular Cities Action Framework, it has 5 areas, and it will be amazing to have these strategies in place. What also Philip mentioned, for example, in harmony with nature. So like the sponge city example that Philip said, that we have nature-based solutions all over the city. And again, Philip's background shows very nicely. So it's not even, using the materials efficiently, but it's actually contributing to even regeneration. That is the important part of circular economy. And I want to see a lot of well-designed, well-thought solutions in the city. So for example, water, like in our flagship city at Ikle in Turku, water is seen as a resource. Wastewater has a lot of resources that is being maybe taken into the food generation in the city, or we have really system solutions for the buildings where the material, if a building is demolished, the material is used somewhere else. And of course, I would love to see lots of entrepreneurs helping us reuse things. So I would not, all these clothes that I would rather exchange and maybe repair, get things repaired like Turkish, all the, like my grandma was doing, but in a modernized fashion by 2045 again. And also I want to see a lot of efficiency, like not anymore anything wasted. So a lot of cleaner production in the industry, if there is any industrial symbiosis, especially in Asia, Latin America, African production is also needs to get efficient. We need to that. And then we can talk about maybe recovery, waste management, very well functioning waste management systems where already producers are taking responsibility, and of course recycling technologies are tested and being rolled out. For example, I love the Baltimore example that they have a waste to wealth program where the demolition waste is again like used in the city for new developments, and there is a local law on that, like targets on that. So I want to see all this, which is a lot of work, and I think we should start getting on with this very soon. That's my bit, and I think I sent the link to the Circular City Action Framework. We would love to get examples on that from you, from the participants, if you have any. Thank you,
Cool.
Paula. Maybe I give it to Amsterdam, to Desiree.
Thank you, Burcu. Well, building up on my colleagues here that already have portrayed quite a solid vision of a circular city in 2045, obviously we are going to need a big sponge for Amsterdam because the water is coming, so the urgency is quite high. I think what I'd like to add on the good things that have already been said so far is that a circular city, in our perspective from where we are working towards here in the city of Amsterdam, is a donut city, based on the principles also of Kate Rayworth and her donut economics, because what we really want to foster is a thriving city where everyone has equal opportunities to thrive as human beings within the planetary boundaries. And we as a city see our own responsibility to also contribute to that. And we see the circular economy as a vehicle to get to that ultimate goal of a thriving, inclusive city. So it's going to be a city where we don't waste anything anymore, where we work in collaborative systems and there's no more waste. And our energy comes from renewable resources. We have fruitful collaborations with businesses inside and outside of the system. And also we've shortened our food value chains. So we don't have to ship everything all over the world anymore in an inefficient way to have healthy food values. So I'll stop there and I'll pass the floor to Charles, who's hopefully on his neest train.
Charles, are you able to speak, or should we wait for a little bit and ask another question later?
I think two things. I think a hell of a lot of things should happen before 2045. And I think a lot of it is about communication. And I remember interviewing the head of Circular Norway, who told me that 40 tons of gold were in the European cars. And I just feel we need to bring some of these iconic facts across. And I asked then an audience, what was the value of that gold? And it was 2.3 billion euros. And what that means to me is there's a vast potential of innovations that can happen. And what I'm really thinking is, before, obviously we need to be doing two things: improving Planet A, the one that is already a problem that we have, and then at the same time be building Planet B. So Philippe's project in Tegel, I'm calling a bit of Planet B, the thing that could be. So I think one of the preconditions for all of this is to really get into people's mind. What does this feel like? What is the, in a sense, compelling story of this circular economy, that it feels desirable rather than a task that you must do it? And one of the preconditions, actually, I think, is for people to begin to have a circular mindset. I actually understand circularity in every sense. And because we, for example, in most disciplines think in silos, we're already not having a circular mindset, understanding the link between culture, urban development, environment, and all the subsectors. I once saw a graph of all the forms of knowledge in society, and this graph just showed the way that things are not connecting. We're not seeing things in a holistic 360-degree perspective. So I think there are three things to be done simultaneously: to generate the awareness with a compelling story, to communicate that powerfully, and then to have those practical examples that all the other three people have talked about.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I think it has become clear that there's a lot of things that we need to work on, many very different things. And I would like to understand a little bit from your experiences. Why is it that these visions that you just described are not yet a reality? So maybe Philip, because you're in the middle of trying to put this vision into practice in Tegel. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on what are the most crucial challenges that you are facing. There's been so many issues that came up. Bringing the circular mindset into people's everyday doing, and what are the most pressing challenges that you say that really needs to be prioritized now? Oh, sorry, and you need to be unmuted.
Good one. That's not an easy one, really, because the knowledge is there. Basically, we knew it all from the 70s onward, and somehow have lost 30 years to I don't know what. I think we've been further ahead in terms of sort of environmental sensitivity in the 80s and 90s than we were for the last 30 years. What we are experiencing now is that politics are with us. So what we do is receiving a lot of support, and the funding is good. So I shouldn't complain. Where we do see the biggest problems is on the administrative side. So getting our plans approved by the small civil servant that's responsible for, let's say, we had a wonderful case recently. We're having tons and tons and tons of concrete that we are breaking up. And of course, we need some new concrete, so we use recycled concrete. That's been part of our concept for the last 5 years or so. So when we submitted our plans, it got rejected by the administration because this recycled concrete is not certified. I said, beg your pardon. And we've got a law that's basically incentivizing us to use that stuff, and you say I can't use it, please make up your minds. And that's sort of these tensions and conflicts between what we want to do and what we are allowed to do is staggering. I mean, it's beyond comprehension, really, on all levels. So the red tape is killing us, really.
Dizzy, is that something that you experienced as well when you were starting to roll out your circularity strategy in Amsterdam?
I'm laughing as a small civil servant in the city of Amsterdam. Of course, it's similar problems. I think what we actually see, and this is probably what makes us a pioneer city, is that we are learning by doing. So we have really embraced the notion that, okay, there's no blueprint to do this, but we've set pretty high ambitions for ourselves, and to translate policy into the real world is of course a challenge. And the small example that Philip gave about, for example, recycled concrete and the certification issues is one component that we need to work through. Well, we have said as a city of Amsterdam, sure, we acknowledge this, and for the next 5 to 10 years, we are gonna iron out these kinks, and we are going to make sure that along the way we will change the law where we can to influence the better uptake of different materials, different products. Because what the actual problem is, we are trying circular things in a linear system, and we need that system change to take place, and that's just not going to happen overnight. So that's just going to take a little bit of time, because we need to move away from the 3R model, which everyone still associates with circular economy. It's reduce, reuse, and recycle. To actually look at values and give values to different materials, but also different social systems, to really foster that transition to a circular economy.
I find that a very interesting way to look at things. This attitude of, we're just learning by doing. I think it's necessarily the only way to go, but still, I find it very remarkable that as a city you look at what you're doing, with such a mindset. Was that there from the very beginning, or how did you install this appetite for bringing secularity into the city of Amsterdam? How did you do that, and how did you bring this this curiosity of saying, oh, we don't know how to do it, but we're just gonna go ahead and try it anyways, and learn by doing, because maybe that's something that Berlin or many other cities can learn from you.
Yeah, sure. Well, I think if we go back very simply back in time through history, the Netherlands as a country has always been fighting against nature. Obviously, we're below sea level. We've always had to innovate to protect ourselves from natural disasters, from rising sea levels. We've actually made a whole province out of a former sea. We've made a whole place where people live now. So I think it is within the Dutch culture to try new things, and if it fails, to try again, but differently. And I think this cultural sensitivity of not being too afraid to lose face, saying, okay, we stuffed up, but we're going to do it again. And I think this is something that we have pioneered over the years. It's becoming, for example, building dikes is one of our biggest export products. We actually help Delta countries protect themselves against the water. And it's becoming the same with the circular economy. Like what we've tried so far up until now, even our national government has risen to the urgency of the case, where the circular economy, all of our learnings, we are also exporting. We've tried some things and they've worked out for the good. And now we can translate that also more on local levels. So you can actually see throughout the whole country's fabric, there's lots of circular initiatives. And Amsterdam, obviously, as a capital city, we are the biggest municipality in the Netherlands. So we have more capacity and resources to actually use the city as a testing ground.
Yeah, that's a very interesting. That's very good.
Can I just add a few points there?
Of course, please go ahead.
Having arrived now in Bologna, the 2 points I want to make, which is following on from Philippe and Desiree. I think there are two issues. One is the incredible potential of procurement. Procurement sounds very unglamorous and a boring topic, but at this moment, $8 trillion of stuff is being procured. A hell of a lot of it is in physical types of infrastructure. And the whole idea of procurement has not been looked at creatively enough. And I encourage everybody to look at a report by Sasha Hasselmeyer, who used to run CityMart, and who with about 100 cities has really transformed the way you can, in a participative way, do procurement and take it away from, let's say, the old usual suspects and to startups that have very, very, very good ideas. That's one point. So procurement, I think, is key. The second thing is, at the Creative Bureaucracy Festival, we gave a prize to the Finnish government and Demos Helsinki for an approach called humble government. And what that basically does, and I'm picking up the point about incentives and regulations, what it does, instead of looking at regulation in a linear way, you have a regulation, you say this, then you evaluate it 2 years later, and you may change it. You work your systems, every system from education to whatever, in a learning loop, which is in fact, I feel, what Desiree was also talking about. So in education, what they've been doing is they look at how learners learn. They might not learn in the old-fashioned way. They shift the teachers in collaboration with the pupils. And ultimately, in this learning loop, they, for example, have changed the curriculum. So I'm just saying there is a new approach too, which I think is going to spread, which at the moment is called humble government. And again, I encourage people just to look that up. So those are just 2 points that came into my mind.
Thank you. Boudre, from your work at ICLE with so many different cities and local and regional government around the world, what would you say are sort of success factors or characteristics that you saw in these cities that really made the difference of not just paying lip service to circularity, but actually being able to put that into practice?
Yeah, thank you. Maybe continuing from Charles' mentioning of Finland, one of the flagship leading cities at ICLEI is in Finland, Turku, the city of Turku, which is heading for climate neutrality by 2039 when they're 800 years old. And one of the challenge, now they have a circular economy roadmap, has been orchestrating all these stakeholders. I mean, it's a very complex way of thinking. Like Desiree was saying, you need to really go out of this silo thinking where you only say, okay, I'm going to set up the waste management system. This is now about managing resources. So they engage, for example, with 700 stakeholders in the priority areas: food, mobility, housing, energy, and it is a really resource intensive process. So you need the staff for it. So it's a big challenge where you need to really work with maybe like exactly Demos Helsinki or other like Citra has been supporting this process. ICLEI has been supporting this process. And then coming up with actions. And then, so of course, we have been working also at Delphi internationally, beyond Europe. Financing early stage innovations is a big issue. It has been always like that. How do we finance these, what Charles said, innovations, projects like Philip has been doing? Is it maybe more, eco-innovation encouragement is needed? Another issue that comes up all the time is what we talked before this call is data. In order to convince the stakeholders, we need the data, and data is not there. So it's a very big problem we face all the time because the topic is very big. Circular economies, you can do many sectors. You need to prioritize. In order to prioritize, you need solid data. And we have very limited data, especially in the developing, of course, countries. We don't even know what's in the waste. It's just simply dumped. So we need to now set up systems in analyzing waste, collecting data. We have some digital tools which comes in handy, but there needs to be a lot of work to be done. And one last thing that I would like to mention also with OECD's work has come up and with ICLEI Europe's work in many cities is how to orchestrate also various sectors and maybe collaborations between cities, because value chains go beyond cities, go beyond one sector. So you need to also orchestrate, beyond actors, but also various value chains. For example, from if there is waste coming from the construction, how will it be used maybe in another place? And you need to look into or from the agriculture sector, how it goes to the energy. You need to cross between sectors, value chains, and that is actually now our challenge, because we have been working in silos. I think that's breaking out issue, and for this we need tools, we need also new skills, and the little government offices, I think there's so much put under pressure. I think they need to be provided with resources and skills, so we need to also set up programs, support programs maybe for that, and also the national level needs to recognize their implementation pressure, because all the many policies, like Philip said, is done nationally, and at the local level it becomes very difficult to implement when the reality is different or the requests are different. So they are a little bit pressed with these requests, of course. So we need agile governance, multi-level governance. So I can also talk about it with many examples, but the time is short. These are some of the challenges I can list.
I think what's a very relevant point is the topic of cross-sector collaboration. And I think, Desiree, in Amsterdam, you have collected quite a few experiences with partnering with the private sector after launching your circular economy strategy. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit on this, because I think it shows pretty hands-on how to implement such a strategy, and what the strategy also does when you lever it. Also, I think we lost Charles. I hope he's coming back.
Well, I think he's still there. I think he's changing trains by the looks of it.
Okay, good.
Station. Sure. So what we've done within our strategy, we've looked as where we actually can make the biggest impact, where we have a big influence as a city government. And we selected 3 value chains. So these value chains are food and organic waste streams, the consumer goods, and the built environment. So we've narrowed that down for us, where we can directly make an impact. So what we've done too is that, again, like we have a very large ecosystem within the city where we cross-collaborate with knowledge institutions, universities, but also with startups and businesses. For example, our Startup and Residence program, that by the way is opening up again, so check that out on LinkedIn. Side note, looking for more circular, sustainable solutions to some of our big questions. So we're really focusing that on circular and sustainability topics. What we've also seen as part of our donut strategy, as you may have seen, the donut economics by Kate Rayworth, we have really embraced. Donut coalitions, bottom up, have started to rise within the city, and we obviously support that. There are many different examples where citizens have, for example, set up groups that I can see the chat popping up, where citizens have startup groups, for example, to make insulation curtains with people without jobs, for example, but also from the city, we have facilitated a front-runner group for hotels, because if you look at the tourism industry, we can also make a big impact collaborating with the hotels in our city. So in terms of, for example, bed linen, what kind of bed linen can we use? Could it be a product as a service? So we really provide that interaction with hotels and the different supply chains that involve that to really reduce their impact. And so you can put different businesses in that sense. And another initiative that has popped up during COVID, for example, is that what we've seen is, don't pin me down on these exact numbers, but I think 2/3 of our food production in the Netherlands is for export purposes. During Corona, obviously, we were stuck with lots of heaps of potatoes. So this initiative started, we call it Farmers for Neighbors, Boeren voor Buren in Dutch, where we really set up this system, this short value chain system, getting our agricultural products to people with smaller budgets within the city. And that actually started to become such a sophisticated, good example of how we can, facilitate that circular economy from bottom-up approaches. So that's just a few examples how we are trying to really foster a circular economy.
Yeah. That's very inspiring. Philip, I heard from you when we were talking beforehand that you would also like to collaborate a little bit more in Tegel with the private sector, and that it's turning out not to be so easy. So maybe you can explain a little bit what exact partnerships you're looking for, and maybe somebody in the audience is here and listens to that, and then it's gonna get in touch afterwards.
Actually, we are collaborating a lot with the private sector, of course, because all the planning is done, all the engineering works, the architecture is all done by the private sector, of course. There's one other thought I'd like to add to the previous discussion, how to overcome these obstacles, and I like simple solutions. And coming back to the picture of the little servant who needs to be empowered to certify sort of our planning, our plans and everything. What I think we need is a European regulation that basically says, don't waste resources, full stop. And then you can take measures from that. You can create these 500-page programs and everything, but it's got to start at the top. And what the European Commission has done with the new Green Deal is exemplary. It's amazing. The effect of the carbon taxonomy on industry will be profound, and we can already see how all the building companies are suddenly coming up, because we are dealing with wood a lot, and they want to collaborate. So sort of how are you going to do that? And we want to learn as well, because concrete and steel, of course, will be hard hit by these new tariffs. So conventional building will be much more expensive than previously, and concrete will be, I'm not going to say it's going to be a luxury material, but it will be much more expensive than it is today. And that's good, actually. It's good because it helps us to preserve resources. And that's exactly the right way. I think sort of the only way forward is from top down, because all bureaucratic organizations, and states are bureaucratic organizations, follow through what's been decided at the top. And I'm so frustrated. I don't see any other way, actually.
Many thanks. That leads me to the last question that I would like to ask you before we open the floor to maybe one or two questions from the audience. I think you gave a very good start here, Philip. And what would be your wish? Thinking back of the vision that we sort of drew at the beginning of our circular cities in the future. What would be your number one wish to make that come true, or your demand? And I think Philip, you said regulation is needed. Maybe Budru, you can add in one sentence your number one wish, if you had only one.
That exact regulation, I would see that, because it would change a lot. I think we're already moving in the right direction, but there's more to be done. It's got to come from the top. And then if you're talking about the built environment, we have about 30,000 rules and regulations when it comes to the building sector. Some of them are national, some of them are regional, and some of them are European. Some of them are in conflict to one another. So if I had a wish, I'd say scrap it all, shredder it, and let's restart.
That's bold, nice. What would be your bold wish to make your vision of a circular city a reality?
Yeah, I think I would marry circular economy with EU taxonomy and encourage a happy marriage. We have to shift our financial flows at all levels. I mean, eventually all the infrastructure that we have been talking about, it needs to have this circular economy criteria related decision-making process. So when the European Investment Bank is deciding where to through the banks put the money, they should favor circular economy projects that we are conceptualizing, or when the venture capitalists or impact funders are deciding on which entrepreneurial project to fund, they should prioritize, they should have the motivation to prioritize circular projects, and also consumers, because we also through our money finance by deciding which product to buy, should choose, if it is available, try to choose such products and services in the city. And yeah, I think finance is a huge, big leverage, because we can conceptualize forever, we can develop action plans, pages and pages, but if the financial leverage is not there, they don't happen. So I'm looking forward to the happy marriage between the EU taxonomy and the circular economy action plan.
Well, Charles, what would be your one bold wish to make circularity in cities a reality? Oh, you're still muted. Please unmute you.
I would have to agree with both. Well, whether you start completely afresh, Philippe, I know he loves provoking, but there's an element of that which is completely true. And what Burcu said, unless the financial system has incentives that make it the thing to do as a completely normal act, then I think we're always struggling and we're always trying to persuade. But I think it needs to be some interesting combination where the financial world and the public, common good world come together in creating this joint story, which feels like a story of desire, something that we want to have. You've got to make it feel compelling.
Brilliant point, Charles. Really, really good. Because just to add to that, we are already seeing that the banking sector is intervening and that conventional resource-hungry projects are not bankable anymore if there are more sustainable alternatives. And we are seeing that already in the market. It's amazing. Very good point.
Desiree, last but not least, what's your wish?
Yeah, I'm giggling for the happy marriage. I think we need a relationship counselor for now. Yeah, look, I absolutely agree with all the other panelists. I think that it's a big transition that needs to shift. I would like to actually come back to your point that Charles said earlier. My big wish is that this generation of awareness, generating awareness and the circular mindset, that's my biggest wish, because, you know, I'm sometimes barking up the wrong tree. If we all are on the same baseline level of understanding the urgency, we understand what's at stake, we understand what needs to be done, and we collaborate, I think that's my biggest wish to moving forward. And, you know, from my point of view, from the city, it's a challenge to already get the right information to my backlash, to people in the back seat.
Yeah, I like to jump there, Desiree. It's true. Like, we really need to, maybe marriages, but unusual friendships. It's really very difficult to come out of the comfortable usual way of doing business and thinking of different value chains, closing the loop. It's very easy to say, but really implementing it, you need champions. I mean, people that are dedicated to coming up with these beautiful stories, as Charles is saying. And the more we tell those stories that are making our lives much better, the more we can have, I think, circular economy. So we need to make all these links happen between different departments, different types of companies. And yeah, that's I think at the ICLE also the network thinking, no, the cities learning from each other, telling each other how it worked in one place. Also these kind of blueprints told between the cities is also quite useful, I find.
Thank you so much for your bold wishes. I think that's a nice parting note. I really, really enjoyed talking to you the last 45 minutes. It was a bit of a wild ride through many different topics, which I think each deserve much more attention individually. But I think what I certainly take from these 45 minutes is that we certainly need a very holistic way forward, you know, and not only thinking in one sector, but across sectors, addressing not just technical issues, but also, you know, mindsets, cultures, and the stories that we tell about you know, the way we live in cities and produce and consume in cities. And yeah, many thanks also for listening. There was not so much interaction in the chat window, so please forgive me that I don't open up the panel at this point, and because also I see coming in the guests for the next session, which is going to be the review session for our first festival day. So please to stay in this Zoom room if you want to participate in that. I'm sure it's going to be very interesting too. And yeah, first of overall, many thanks to the panelists for your time and your that you shared so many of your learnings and experiences from your respective work. Many thanks. Now I hand over to my colleague, I think Sophia, right?
Yes, I'm here.
Cool. I didn't see. Many thanks.
Thank you also from my side. Vielen Dank an die Speaker von eben. Das war auch wieder eine sehr inspirierende Runde. Und herzlich willkommen. Wir machen einen direkten Anschluss. Keine weiteren Jingle, keine weiteren Slides, sondern sofort die Brücke schlagen in die allerletzte Sessions, das Review des Tages. Wir wollen da gar nicht so sozusagen zu viel eurer Zeit jetzt ganz am Schluss noch abzwacken, aber wir dachten, bei so einem Festival mit so vielen Sessions, mit so vielen Inhalten, mir geht es zumindest meistens so, wenn wenn ich all das aufnehme, fällt es mir manchmal gar nicht so leicht, dann am Ende des Tages zu sagen, was bleibt jetzt hier eigentlich hängen? Und wir wissen ja heute auch so ein bisschen aus der Art und Weise, wie unser Gehirn funktioniert, dass es Sinn macht, sich nochmal kurz zu besinnen und einfach den Moment nochmal zu nutzen, um Dinge zu rekapitulieren, nochmal zu überlegen, so was sind eigentlich die Dinge, die bei mir heute hängen bleiben. Und das wollen wir letzten Endes in den nächsten 15 Minuten jetzt noch einmal tun. Wir machen das in 2 Schritten. Das eine ist, bevor ich jetzt euch zu viel erzähle, würde ich euch gerne einmal mehr in kleine Gruppen wieder schicken und einladen, euch einfach dazu auszutauschen. Einmal mehr eine Gelegenheit, auch neue Menschen kennenzulernen aus der Community. Wir geben euch 8 Minuten und haben für euch 3 ganz einfache Fragen, die wir mitgeben wollen. Das eine ist einfach nochmal eine Vorstellung, wer seid ihr? Lernt euch nochmal kennen. Dann ein Teilen, an welchen Sessions habt ihr teilgenommen? Welche Sessions haben euch vielleicht mitgerissen? Und der dritte Punkt, wie ich finde, der spannende, was sind die Dinge, die besonders nachklingen an diesem Tag? Was sind es vielleicht für Erkenntnisse, Aha-Momente? Was sind Erlebnisse gewesen, die irgendwie in irgendeiner Form euch vielleicht noch bewegen? Vielleicht sind es Zitate, manchmal sind es so Bilder, die hängen bleiben. Wir würden euch in Zweier-, Dreier-Konstellationen schicken, also sehr persönlich. Ihr müsst sozusagen, man erlebt das auch mal, wenn man die Leute in so Kleingruppen schickt, dann mancher erschrickt dann und geht dann doch lieber noch mal raus. Das ist kein Test, es ist wirklich einfach eine Einladung, andere Menschen kennenzulernen und ich bin mir sicher, bei jedem klingt irgendetwas nach. Insofern hat auch jeder was zu teilen. Und damit würde ich meinen Kollegen bitten, einmal die Breakout-Räume einzustielen. Und ihr müsst nichts weiter tun, außer die Einladung dafür anzunehmen. Und wir holen euch dann in 8 bis 10 Minuten zurück für die letzte Drehung hier in dieser Runde.
Hallo Martin, wir sind gerade in Breakouts. Ich weise dich auch mal einer zu.
Dann sehen wir uns gleich wieder im großen Raum. Ciao.
Willkommen zurück. Es fühlt sich nochmal an.
Viel zu kurz, wie immer.
Wie immer viel zu kurz,
Viel zu
oder?
kurz. Ich bin auch gerade rausgeflogen, genau.
Man sagt ja einmal, im digitalen Raum liegt die Würze in der Kürze, aber irgendwie ist es dann genau wie du sagst, doch immer sehr kurz.
Aber ich rede doch so gerne, wenn dann die Zeit runtertickt.
Ja, das kenne ich. Muss man sich mal noch kurz halten. Die letzten Minuten wollen wir nochmal nutzen und den Stefan und die Katharina mit auf die Bühne holen. Stefan und Katharina sind beide auch Co-Organisatorinnen. Und wir haben auch die Gelegenheit genutzt, jetzt in Vorbereitung für dieses Review und haben selber noch mal so ein bisschen überlegt, was sind eigentlich die Dinge, die bei uns heute hängen bleiben. Und das wissen sozusagen nicht alle, nur diejenigen, die tatsächlich eigene Sessions gestaltet haben, dass wir im Hintergrund auch ein Miro-Board haben, also eine Übersicht, wo alle diese Organisatoren der einzelnen Sessions auch eingeladen sind, so ein paar Erkenntnisse festzuhalten aus ihren jeweiligen Sessions, sodass man sich nochmal reinklicken kann. Den Link dazu, den teilen wir gleich. Ich zeige es auch einmal in einer Sekunde. Und da haben wir einfach nochmal gemeinsam drauf geguckt und überlegt, so was sehen wir denn da, was lesen wir da raus und wie trifft sich das auch mit unseren eigenen Beobachtungen. Und wir haben uns überlegt, wir würden einfach gerne auch von unserer Seite nochmal vielleicht 3 Beobachtungen dieses Tages teilen und sind auch gespannt, ob sich das vielleicht mit euren deckt und wollen euch damit quasi aus dem Tag entlassen. Und ich würde damit einmal gerne an den Stefan geben und der macht so ein bisschen den Auftakt und dann schlängeln wir uns mal hier quasi die Reihe durch.
Ja, mache ich sehr gerne. Ich habe tatsächlich eine Fragestellung mitgenommen, die ich heute häufiger gehört habe von Unternehmensvertretern auch aus dem Bereich, wie bekomme ich denn mein Unternehmen dazu, Teil der Circular Economy zu werden? Das war irgendwie so ein häufig geäußerter Wunsch und auch eine Fragestellung. Dann durfte ich länger ein Gespräch mit Anna Jona, der Gründerin, Geschäftsführerin von Wildling, führen. Und die hat sich ganz anders gefragt. Die hat sich nämlich gefragt, wie sie mit ihrem Team regenerativ wirtschaften kann, damit die Welt besser wird. Also die hat eigentlich so ein bisschen die Unternehmensperspektive aufgemacht. Und das ist eigentlich das, glaube ich, was wir brauchen. Also was wir brauchen, ist tatsächlich eine Neudefinition des Begriffes Wertschöpfung. Wertschöpfung als etwas, wo nicht nur Geld hinten rauskommt, sondern wo sehr viel mehr gesellschaftlicher, ökologischer, sozialer Mehrwert hinten rauskommt. Weil in der Circular Economy, wenn wir heute gucken, unternehmerisch gedacht, stecken da ja unglaublich viele Fragen und Risiken drin. Und wer nur fragt, ist da ein kurzfristiger, rentabler Markt für mich, der wird es sehr schwer haben, so diesen ersten experimentellen Schritt, nachdem wir auch alle gerufen haben heute, den zu machen. Und wer sich aber sagt, ich stehe jeden Morgen auf und produziere linear 2 Tonnen Müll, der hat ein Problem. Der hat ein Problem, ja, dem fehlt der Sinn in der Arbeit zumindest. Und was wir brauchen die zirkulären, regenerativen Ziele, Aufgaben, Geschäftsmodelle. Deswegen mein Fazit heute, lasst uns mehr über den Sinn und Zweck von Unternehmen reden und lasst uns diese Transformation bauen. Unternehmen werden der Hebel für die Circular Economy.
Ich nehme mal den Ball auf, den du da sozusagen so ein bisschen auch Teil schon rüberwirfst. Denn wenn ich so drüber nachdenke, was bei mir auf jeden Fall heute hängen bleibt, ist es dieses immer wieder vorgebrachte vom Reden ins Tun kommen. Harald hat heute früh gesagt, es geht irgendwie auch um eine Action Revolution, Schluss mit Reden und konkrete Beispiele schaffen. Und für mich war das auch im Gespräch mit Professor Messner nochmal ein großes Thema und auch etwas, was ich aus den anderen Sessions so ein bisschen herausgehört habe. Und für mich steht da immer die große Frage dahinter von Collective Action. Also wie schaffen wir es eigentlich, die Massen, also die Menschen mitzureißen in dieser Veränderung? Ich habe das Gefühl, dass das habe ich zumindest heute sehr stark nochmal gelernt, dass in der Transformationsforschung es da eigentlich schon sehr viel Wissen gibt, was so wichtige Elemente sind von starken Zukunftsbildern über die Frage von Referenzen, also wie zeigen, dass es möglich ist, auch eine Frage von Narrativen und Zeitgeist, Frage von auch sozialer Fairness und Inklusivität. Das alles können, glaube ich, spannende Dimensionen sein. Und auch aus den Sessions habe ich sehr stark diese Frage herausgehört, wie schaffen wir es denn, die Hürden möglichst niedrig zu halten, um unsere Communities zu mobilisieren, ob das in der Stadt die Communities sind, ob das Unternehmen sind ja auch quasi soziale Einheiten, wie schafft man es, die quasi zu mobilisieren und dazu zu bewegen, sich auf diesen Weg zu machen. Und das war für mich heute ein großes Thema, was auf jeden Fall nochmal rausgekommen und nochmal betont wurde, da auch durchaus pragmatisch mutig ins Tun zu gehen. Und damit reiche ich den Ball einmal weiter an Katharina.
Ja, danke schön. Mein Punkt knüpft auch super an deinen an, weil ich habe ganz viel herausgehört, dass es gemeinsame Anstrengungen braucht. Kollaborationen waren ein Stichwort, was oft genannt wurde, Austausch. Und ja, genau dafür wurde ja auch dieses Festival hier ins Leben gerufen, um genau so einen Ort oder einen Raum dieses Austausches zu schaffen. Und genau, ich hoffe, euch allen ging es ganz genauso wie mir, dass ich total inspiriert und motiviert wurde heute von diesem vielfältigen Programm und es auch schon total im Vorfeld motivierend war, wie viele Leute hier heute teilgenommen haben und auch wirklich aktiv den Tag mitgestaltet haben. Mir hat es total viel Energie persönlich gegeben, auch an meinen eigenen Projekten wieder weiterzuarbeiten. Mir gezeigt, wie wichtig es ist, auch wirklich regelmäßig mit Leuten zu sprechen. Ich glaube, gerade in Zeiten von Corona auch nochmal gut, dass sich selbst immer wieder klar zu werden, dass es auch jetzt eben online super funktioniert, da in den Austausch zu gehen. Genau, und ich hoffe, genau diese Energie, die ist auch bei euch allen angekommen und ja, ihr seid jetzt motiviert, auch vom Tun ins Handeln zu gehen oder eben eure tollen Projekte weiter voranzutreiben.
Super. Dankeschön, Katharina. Und das Beste zum Schluss ist ja die Erkenntnis, dass es noch gar nicht vorbei ist, sondern dass es ja morgen noch weitergeht. Und zum Abschluss möchte ich euch eine Sache nochmal zeigen. Mein Kollege hat gerade schon den Link geteilt zu diesem Miro-Board und ich möchte es einfach zeigen, weil über diesen Link könnt ihr euch selber auch nochmal jetzt heute Abend, auch morgen nochmal so ein bisschen reinlesen. Da seht ihr zwei Sachen. Das eine ist hier, also ich mache es nochmal ganz groß, irgendjemand hat es ein bisschen verschoben, das mache ich gleich nochmal ein bisschen ordentlich wieder. Aber hier in diesem Bereich seht ihr quasi diese Zusammenfassung der Sessions, wenn ihr da so ein bisschen reinzoomt. Da haben wirklich schon sehr, sehr viele Session-Owner auch Gedanken hinterlassen, was für sie denn so spannende Erkenntnisse aus ihren eigenen Sessions waren. Was ist viel diskutiert worden? Wo gibt es irgendwie so Wiederkehrendes? Da kann man sich mal so ein bisschen reinlesen. Und hier auf der Seite daneben seht ihr schon ein schwarzes Brett. Das ist auch eine Einladung an euch, dieses schwarze Brett morgen im Laufe des Tages zu füllen. Einmal, vielleicht gibt es von euch Leute, die sagen, wir suchen zum Beispiel Mitstreiter für unsere Initiative oder wir brauchen eine bestimmte Expertise, vielleicht hier einfach posten quasi. Ganz klassisch wie früher und gerne mit eurem Kontakten, also Name und Kontakt, wie man euch erreichen kann. Das ist das eine. Aber vielleicht bietet ihr auch was an. Also wir zum Beispiel als Project Together bieten ein wahnsinnig inspirierendes, spannendes Innovationsprogramm an, das ich sicherlich heute Abend da nochmal rein posten werde. Aber vielleicht habt ihr auch Sachen, die ihr gerne der Community anbieten wollt. Und last but not least, Feedback. Wir freuen uns natürlich insbesondere, weil es das erste Festival ist, was wir hier so gemeinsam ausgestalten, über Hinweise, Feedback, alles, was uns hilft, so ein Gespür zu kriegen, wie es euch geht, wie das Festival euch gefällt und was wir vielleicht beim möglichen nächsten Mal anders machen können. So, das soll es an dieser Stelle gewesen sein. Jetzt ist es wirklich Zeit, den Abend zu beschließen. Ich wünsche euch einen wunderbaren Ausklang, einen schönen Donnerstagabend und freue mich sehr auf den morgigen Tag. Wir starten auch wieder um 9, wer mag, mit einer kleinen Intro, wo auch wieder sozusagen so ein bisschen warm werden, ankommen und dann auch wieder sehr, sehr vielen parallelen Sessions, wo sicherlich nicht jedem leicht fällt, sich zu entscheiden, aber man darf ja auch ein bisschen springen und sich an verschiedenen Stellen Eindrücke verschaffen. Ja, das soll es gewesen sein von unserer Seite. Jetzt kommt bestimmt gleich nochmal unser guter Jingle. Wir alle mögen ihn so. Genau, dann wünsche ich euch einen schönen Abend. Bis dann. Tschüss.
Vielen Dank euch.
Dankeschön.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Danke, tschüss.
Danke.
Tschüss.
Andrea ist noch drin.